This is in fulfillment of my web interview for the Big 5 questions relating to Common Core. Here is Casey Cavanis, former band director for my children, now band director at our local high school, and former Marine. Lauren, who is a mom and a college instructor as well. My friend Doug Mack, who is a mental health professional, a life and health coach, as well as a grandfather. I think we have a broad spectrum here of perspectives on Common Core, and I have instructors as well as parents, because parents don't always understand the Common Core, instructors don't always understand the Common Core, and I didn't want it to be a requirement because I think it needs to be taken from all perspectives. So Casey, we'll start with you. As a band director, how does band influence a student's success in other areas of education?
I've always felt that band is a microcosm of real life. You got groups of people that come from lots of money, groups of people from no money, people with good work ethic, people that just hang on, and some you got to drag all the way around. It teaches them how to interact and work with everybody towards a common goal. Because when you get a job, that's what you're supposed to be able to do. For a band, it's just putting on a product, whether it's the marching band show, a concert program, or an indoor program, or just a solo and ensemble. They have to learn to work with each other. And then by that process of setting aside that time, properly learning, hey, I've got to divide my time, hey, I got to practice 30 minutes, and now I want to do this, it helps them come up with ways that they can, meet all the criteria they want to do, but still have the time to have fun and laugh and cut up. Because if you take life too serious, it's just, you're sad. We laughed a lot in the band all, didn't we?
Oh, wish you could.
Gotta laugh.
And as a computer professional who also teaches, how does technology affect a student's success in other areas?
There are two schools of thought on technology. One is less is more, and one is more, as far as teaching. There are some people that think that technology needs to be in front of them all day, every day. Prime example, New York City schools are going 100% Chromebook next year.
Casey, as a parent, how do you feel like you influence your child's success at school?
A balance.
Okay.
Being active in church, is first, I think that's an outlet because they're around other people and then from a different mindset, being active in an extracurricular. Those kids, I've watched too many kids sit there I call them the flotsam and the jetsam, the stuff that floats behind the boats out at sea, that just don't do anything. They show up at school and then they go home. They have nothing. They're not involved in anything.
Doug is a mental health professional, an educator, because you've recently started teaching as well, and I know we teach as mental health professionals, and a life nutrition coach. How does your experience with the adults, especially nutrition-wise and mental health-wise, reflect needed changes in our education?
I think probably one of the biggest things I see is that they don't know how to function as just a rounded person. Just being able to do, and I think you mentioned the life skill kind of thing. They don't know how to live life, They may be able to use a computer, but, how do you communicate with someone else, or how do you get in?
Well, so as educators with Common Core at the college level, that does not impact college level currently, meaning...
Yet, we don't have any of the students that have gone through Common Core. Well, except I may have a couple this term, because Gulfport started implementation for Mississippi.
In the next
They
couple of years,
piloted
we
it.
will.
2 years ago, yeah.
I would
Right,
say the
and I
next-
was in the district then.
Right.
So some of them may have graduated by now, but,
In the next couple of years, we will.
oh yeah, definitely. But I think it's totally down to implementation. I have now 6th graders. She was in 5th grade last year. I've taught 5th grade. I know 5th grade math. And for her to come home and tell me, no, that's not how you do it. In math, there's more than one way to solve a problem last time I checked. But it gets marked wrong because it wasn't the way the teacher taught it. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
How does Common Core affect your curriculum in band?
Well, it's like I said before, there are areas of Common Core that I like, but I think it's the implementation. Trying to ramrod, every kid is a different thinker with the differentiated instruction, which band directors do, and choir directors and theater kids, teachers do all the time. It's no big deal for us because we're having to, okay, this one's not getting it. We always got 3 or 4 different ways to get it. And I understand it's great to do it in the classroom, but setting the standards where you want the kids, you're not always going to, every kid is not going to be an advanced kid. They're just not. There's some classes that they're going to excel in. Like for me, math, history, and science, I love those. Hated English. I hated it. I always carried a B in that class, had A's and everything else. You know, does that make me a bad person? Does that? No. I don't speak very well with that, but I can sure write and compose music and arrange music and teach kids how to play and perform. So I think that's where the problem with Common Core is that it's the implementation of expectation of every kid's got to get here. We need to go back to thinking, let's make sure that, okay, if the child starts here, let's at least get him up to here. So then that way, next year when he comes back after 3 months off, he'll start here and they can keep growing that child.
Well, and it's written for only one kind of learner.
Right.
Well, Lauren, how about you? How do you influence?
Like Casey said, support and balance, but most of all, just setting an expectation. I mean, the expectation is different than her father's. And we had to have that discussion where, you know, his parents expected him to have all A's. There was no question. It didn't matter. You were going to have an A, period. My oldest is not a student. She's not. She's not a book learner. She's creative and she does all that other stuff. So I'm okay with a B and a C. I'm okay with that because I know, as long as I know she's doing her best, I'm good.
Exactly.
And you know, Doug, we're grandparents, and you know, we're only sometimes influencing. So how are you influencing?
I just think that's a whole different ball game, and it's the best ball game I've ever been to. I've told lots of people that my being a grandpa is probably the best job I've ever had. But I think that my just showing up is something that's important. And I know that when one of them calls me and says, "Grandpa, I'm playing at the Sportsplex this weekend, can you come?" You bet. You bet. Because that's what, he wants me there. He wants me there. And I have step-grandchildren, and I'm trying to do that with them, but it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Because how do you get involved with someone else and be in a healthy relationship or something like that? I think those things are just, it's ignored.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that? I say it all the time. Kids don't know how to talk to each other anymore. There is no communication
No.
skills.
They talk at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the only way they communicate is through a text, but words on a text, the drama that gets caused from somebody sending a text, you don't know what the meaning of it is.
Well, you don't hear
Right.
the inflection and all,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
You know, so that every student has a machine. I personally take the less is more approach. Yes, I teach computers, and yes, they're useful, but there needs to be some time where you're away from technology.
Okay. So my final question is, Casey, what is your favorite book and why?
See, you told me you're going to ask me that question. I have two.
Okay.
Okay, I love the entire Lord of the Rings series. Because when I read that, I was, I think, 7th and 8th grade. I got into it, and just the way he was so descriptive. And I could see in my head. That's the reason why I hated to go see the movie, because that's not the way it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
Because in my
Always.
head, and I think that's something that we've lost is the imagination because of computers and the video games. And the mass media puts everything out there. We've taken away that art of being able to be creative and imaginative and see those things in our head. My other one was the Great Santini. My dad would talk to me about this movie, and again, it was the descriptive, not the movie, but the book. And again, it was the descriptions in it, just what way he talked about the flying aspect and the guy as he was flying through the air, was just like, it made me think that was my dad flying, even though he just flew in.
When you just said, you know, if the teacher's gonna be allowed to be creative in how they teach that, I think that's important. I think that's important, because I think if just at Miller Mott, if they said, okay, you have to stand up there and do this, 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 and this, I wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be there. And I don't remember seeing teachers when I was in school being as comfortable at the front of the classroom as I am sitting on a desk, you know, teaching.
Yeah.
Instead of standing up and you know, I just think that's kind of stuff is important.
Yeah, that sage on the stage crap stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you, Laura?
I'm not allowed to have a favorite book. I'm a librarian, or have been a librarian.
That's sort of
I
like.
can't have a favorite. They're all my favorite. No, but as a child, my favorites were The Secret Garden and of Green Gables. But to expound on what we're talking about, my oldest doesn't like to read. Is now kind of starting to enjoy it. But with having to read at a certain level, I never would have been allowed to pick up The Secret Garden in the 4th grade and read it, because it's a 6.5 grade book or something like that. So that I go back and forth with being appropriate for what they want to read and just being what they want to read.
I'm with you on what,
You know, I was just sitting here thinking, I remember as a kid reading the Hardy Boys series, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of book, and I remember that was always fun, because it was kind of like I lived in the country, and it was kind of like there was just that detective kind of thing, you know, that you could just do some of that stuff, because we played outside.
Yeah.
Back then we played outside.
Played outside.
But you know,